The blizzard had no mercy that night. It screamed across the plains like an angry spirit, tearing through the frozen land with claws of ice and wind. Snow piled high against the doors of lonely cabins and buried the trails, until the earth itself seemed erased. Most people with sense stayed inside, huddled close to fire and prayer. But fate does not ask permission before it changes a life. Eliza Hart was not meant to be outside. Her husband had been dead for 3 winters now, claimed by fever and exhaustion, leaving her alone on the edge of the frontier with nothing but stubborn courage and a small homestead. She knew storms. She respected them. But when the wind carried a sound that did not belong to the storm, a thin, broken cry, her body moved before her fear could stop it. At first, she thought it was the wind playing tricks. Then she heard it again, weak, human, a baby. Eliza wrapped herself in her thickest coat, pulled a wool scarf over her mouth, and stepped into the white fury. Each step was a battle. The snow reached her knees. The wind knocked the breath from her lungs. Still, the cry pulled her forward like a rope tied around her heart. She followed the sound beyond the fence line, past the half-buried cottonwood trees, until she saw something dark against the white. A bundle. Kneeling, her hands trembling, Eliza brushed away snow with frantic fingers. Inside the soaked, frozen wrappings was a baby, no more than a year old. His skin was blue with cold, his lips barely moving as his cry faded into silence. "Oh, God," she whispered, clutching him to her chest. He was not white. His hair was dark and thick. His tiny face carried the unmistakable features of a Comanche child. Eliza knew what that meant. Helping him could bring death to her door. Leaving him would bring death to her soul. She did not hesitate. She turned back toward the cabin, shielding the baby from the wind with her body. Stumbling, falling, rising again. By the time she reached her door, her hands were numb, her legs shaking violently. But the child was still alive. Inside, she stripped the baby's frozen clothes, warmed him with her own skin, fed him goat's milk drop by drop until his breathing steadied. She stayed awake all night, rocking him beside the fire, whispering prayers into the flames. By morning, the blizzard had passed. The baby slept peacefully in her arms. Only then did Eliza realize the danger she had invited into her life. Comanche children were never alone. Someone would be searching. For 3 days, she hid the baby whenever. She heard distant sounds, hoofbeats, wind, imagination. She named him Little Hawk because his grip on her finger was fierce, and because something in his eyes felt unbroken by the storm. She expected violence. Instead, on the 4th morning, the ground trembled. Eliza stepped onto her porch and froze. Across the snow-covered plain stood nearly 100 Comanche warriors, mounted and silent, their horses steaming in the cold. At the front rode a man with a feathered war bonnet, his eyes sharp, unreadable. She held the baby tighter. This was the moment that would decide whether her kindness had been foolish or legendary. And before we continue, if you feel the tension of this moment, if stories like this move you, subscribe to the channel now. You won't want to miss what happens next, because what that Comanche chief does will change Eliza's life forever.